Hey everyone. Harry Houdini defied the impossible throughout a mystifying career that still makes him a household name today. From swallowing needles, a score at a time, to pulling himself out of a whale carcass, to his famous Chinese water torture cell escapes, Houdini dazzled millions with his stunts. Today, let's know about Harry Houdini, who escaped from the belly of a whale, but not death. Let's start the video, but before that, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. It seemed that death could never claim the famous magician, but Harry Houdini's death did come on Halloween of 1926, leaving behind mystery and speculation that has fascinated people ever since. Harry Houdini was born on March 24, 1874 as Eric Weiss in Budapest, Hungary, and immigrated to the United States in 1878. Weiss started his career with stunts early, performing trapeze at age 9 before beginning a vaudeville career in magic in 1891. He changed his name to Harry Houdini in honor of the famous French magician Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin. Houdini became known as the Handcuff King and marveled audiences worldwide with the ability to escape from almost anything. His most famous escape was a Chinese water torture cell in which an upside-down, suspended Houdini is lowered into then locked into a tank of water. He was allowed 2 minutes to escape, which he invariably did to the delight of audiences. Houdini's theatrics and charismatic persona seemed to be made for the burgeoning revolution of media in the early 20th century. He quickly rocketed to superstardom. In 1926, at the age of 52, Harry Houdini was at the top of his game. He toured the country in the early part of the year, performing escapes and enjoying his decades-old fame. But when he toured again that autumn, everything seemed to go wrong. On October 11th, Houdini broke his ankle while performing water torture cell escaped trick in Albany, New York. He managed to push through the next several appearances against doctors' orders and then traveled to Montreal. There, he made appearances at the Princess Theatre and held a lecture at McGill University. After the lecture, he smooshed with students and faculty, among them Samuel J. Smiley Smilovich, who made a sketch of the famous magician. Houdini was so impressed with the drawing that he invited Smilovich to come to the Princess Theatre on Friday, October the 2nd to do a proper portrait. On the appointed day at 11 a.m., Smilovich came to visit Harry Houdini with a friend called Jack Price. They were later joined by a freshman student named Jocelyn Gordon Whitehead. While Smilovich sketched Houdini, Whitehead chatted with the magician. After some talk about Houdini's physical strength, Whitehead asked if it was true that he could withstand even the mightiest punch to the stomach. Whitehead struck at least 4 times until Houdini gestured him to stop in mid-punch. Houdini said that he didn't think Whitehead would strike so suddenly, otherwise he would have been better prepared. By evening, Houdini was suffering tremendous pain in his abdomen. The next evening, Houdini left Montreal on an overnight train to Detroit, Michigan. He telegraphed ahead for a doctor to examine him. The doctor diagnosed Houdini with acute appendicitis and said he should go immediately to the hospital. But the Garrick Theatre in Detroit had already sold $15,000 worth of tickets for that evening's show. Houdini reportedly said, "I'll do the show if it's my last." Houdini carried on with the show at the Garrick on October the 24th despite having a temperature of 104 degrees. Between the first and second acts, ice packs were used to cool him down. According to some reports, he passed out during the performance. By the beginning of the third act, he called off the show. Houdini still refused to go to the hospital until his wife forced him. A hotel physician was called, followed by his personal physician, who convinced him to go to Grace Hospital at 3 a.m. Surgeons removed Harry Houdini's appendix on the afternoon of October 25th, but because he had delayed treatment for so long, his appendix had ruptured and the lining of his stomach was inflamed with peritonitis. Infection spread throughout his body. Today, such a malady simply requires a round of antibiotics, but this was 1926. Antibiotics wouldn't be discovered for another 3 years. Houdini's bowels became paralyzed and surgery was needed. Houdini received 2 operations and he was injected with an experimental anti-streptococcal serum. He seemed to recover somewhat, but he quickly relapsed, overcome by sepsis. At 1:26 p.m. on Halloween, Harry Houdini died in his wife Bess's arms. His last words were supposedly, "I'm getting tired and I can't fight anymore." Houdini was buried at Machpelah Cemetery, a Jewish graveyard in Queens, with 2,000 mourners wishing him well. Surrounding Harry Houdini's death was a wild subplot involving spirits, seances, and a ghost named Walter. And for any of that to make sense, we need to circle back to Houdini's life and another one of his pet passions, debunking spiritualism. More than a performer, Houdini was an engineer to the bone. Houdini performed tricks on stage, but he never played them off as magic. They were simply illusions. He made his own equipment to suit the specific needs of his tricks and performed them with necessary physical strength to wow an audience. They were feats of engineering masquerading as entertainment, but that's why he had a bone to pick with spiritualism. The religion, which was based on the belief that it's possible to communicate with the dead, reached its peak popularity in the 1920s. World War I had just killed 16 million people across the globe, and the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 had wiped out 50 million more. The world was traumatized by death, and a religious movement that purported to keep the dead somewhat alive was attractive, to say the least. But with the movement came an influx of mediums, people who became celebrities for their supposed ability to communicate with the deceased. They employed all sorts of tricks to dupe people into thinking they had supernatural abilities, and Houdini couldn't stand it. Ironically, though he was an anti-spiritualist, Harry Houdini's death became fuel for spiritualist fodder. He and his wife Bess had made a pact that whichever one of them died first would try to communicate with the other from the great beyond to prove once and for all whether spiritualism was real. And so, Bess held a seance on the next 9 Halloween nights, trying to conjure up the spirit of her husband. In 1936, 10 years after Harry Houdini's death, Bess held a much-anticipated final seance in the Hollywood Hills. Her husband never showed up. Bess may have abandoned her pursuit to communicate with Harry Houdini after he died, but the public hasn't. Every Halloween, you're bound to find a group of Ouija board enthusiasts trying to conjure the spirit of the long-lost illusionist. In 1926, blows to the abdomen were thought to cause a ruptured appendix. Today, however, the medical community considers such a link very much up for debate. It's possible that the punches led to Houdini's appendicitis, but it's also possible that the two events just so happened to coincide. The weight of evidence suggests a mundane cause of death for the mystifying magician.
And gentlemen, I take great pleasure in introducing my latest invention, the walkie-talkie.
But Harry Houdini certainly knew how to make the mundane dramatic. Well, that's it for today. I hope you're liking Nerdies Discoveries. Can't wait for the next video to learn more and be fascinated about. See you on the next. Bye.